Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of Baki Talki. We're almost at 20, not quite yet, which is my first admission of defeat. But that's what this episode is all about, as it is titled Admission of Defeat. With me, we have a new guest, never before on the pod, just like almost every other week, but still a special guest, Louis.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. And Steve, sometimes refusing to admit defeat is the key to success.
I don't think you're going to sell many books with that. Also, hello is my thing, so I will have to edit out one of your hellos. Anyway, Louis, I always have two questions that I ask our new guests on the show, just so the audience gets a chance to know you. So, first off, other than Baki, what shows have you currently been watching?
Oh God, it's we've been watching Stranger Things again from the beginning, of course. So there's that one, and then I watched the trailer for the new Game of Thrones House of Dragons or something like that prequel. Yeah. Anyway, the trailer was enough for me. Did not decide to watch that one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm waiting until I was planning on just not watching it and saying I was waiting for reviews, but now all the reviews are very positive, so I have to come up with a new reason I'm not watching it. I just have to find one review that says it's not good, but we'll get there. Second question: before I asked you to watch this episode, which I think you watched an hour ago, so before an hour ago, what did you know about Baki?
I knew absolutely nothing. Except I had a hunch that it was going to be obscure and worth making a podcast about. And it did not disappoint.
Oh, I'm so glad. And you know what? I was happy that you got this episode because I actually found it gave a lot more context than most other episodes, in some ways at least. So why don't Louis, you just tell us how the episode... Well, actually, before that, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm shocked to hear that because this show felt like it had no basis. I have no idea what's going on, and I felt like it was a show about nothing. It was very amusing.
It does get compared to Seinfeld a lot. They are sort of sister shows, in my opinion. So, Louis, why don't you just walk us through how the episode starts? I believe we're in an alleyway with Dopo Rachi and Hector Doyle.
I commend you for knowing the names.
That is my job.
Yeah, it started off with a very interesting confrontation.
I can't believe I ran into the pyro who just blew up my building. Don't know if that's good luck or bad.
It's typical anime confrontation, so I wasn't too surprised. The thing that really got me is that out of the blue, character one, I don't know the name, but the guy who got beat up, being beat up by
the guy with the red-haired guy or the older guy?
The red-haired guy, yeah.
Doyle, yeah.
And then out of the blue, the older guy's like, oh yeah, those two guys are dead. There's
two guys who don't show up in this episode otherwise.
Oh, by the way, those two are dead. No way. Yeah, it's a shame, really. I feel bad for him. Oliver was out for a stroll and was suddenly hit by a meteorite.
Damn!
And Retsu happened to be right where a crack in the earth opened up during an earthquake.
Get me out!
Some people just have the worst luck, you know?
And that meteor, so for fans of the show, or listeners, Dobo just out of the blue tells Doyle that Oliver and Retsu have both been killed. Oliver was hit in the head with a meteor and then went damn when it hit his head. And then Retsu was swallowed into the earth in a horrific but very localized earthquake. Now, spoiler alert, this did not happen. I don't really fully understand why Dopo said this other than, honestly, I think he was just having fun.
Okay, because I was also very confused as to why this was being said. But then it gets weirder in that, like, they're in an alleyway, the perfect place for a fight. And the old guy's like taunting the red-haired guy's like, yeah, come on, you want to fight? We can fight. And then he's like, meet me in the park. And it's like, but you're already together in the alleyway. Why am I meeting you in a park? We're right here.
Especially because their fight has zero movement in it. Like
Yeah.
they could have had that fight in a closet.
So then they go off to a park, and it's like you say, it's a single blow, and that's just the end of that character interaction. I was very confused. I'm like, okay, this old guy, I gotta, recognize his face, get to know this guy. No, not at all. He's not in the rest of the show.
Yeah, that was it for Dopo in the episode. I don't know. So I have a park near my house, and I have opinions on it. A lot of people have unleashed dogs in there. But I think that's a lot easier to deal with than if there was some guy who just kept luring people in there to kick their ass.
Meet me in the park. Sure.
Use the alleyway.
And he was the only one in the whole episode who really colored up his karate. Everyone else is like karate, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to use karate.
Yeah, well, Dopo is the karate guy. The thing with this show is most fighters have like a gimmick, or they represent a school of thought. So Dopo is the karate guy.
The school of thought of luring poor unsuspecting bastards into parks and beating the shit out of them.
Yes.
I do have to say though, I appreciated the attention to detail on the cauliflower ears. Like you could tell this guy was an old school fighter, and I appreciate that.
But do you know why the rest of his face was scarred?
Yes, Steve. It was very, very clear in the show. They gave a very succinct backstory.
Well, I just couldn't tell if you could pick up from the context clues. A few episodes ago, an escaped criminal slammed his face with an explosive that he had inside his hand, and all of his face blew off. Anyway, I just thought that might be obvious. I wanted to touch on one aspect of this scene that I found really fun. So. You wouldn't have context of this, but the main driving point of this season is that 5 death row inmates spontaneously around the world decided to break out of their jails and travel to Japan to taste defeat. And they all have different definitions of defeat. And in this episode, we learn that Doyle considers himself undefeated because nobody has ever killed him.
I know you had a little tussle with Retsu. He and that American Oliver ran into you. And by ran into you, I mean they kicked your ass left and right.
They couldn't finish the job.
So in your mind, that's what keeps you undefeated, huh? Man, you really are pathetic.
What are your thoughts on...
That's a good definition.
I love it. I'm undefeated. You're undefeated. Like, take that, Abraham Lincoln... Alexander the Great, Napoleon, all of those guys, complete losers.
I have to say he did give off the air of being like the top dog.
Which is tough when you get continuously beat up by an old man.
Oh, I was talking about the old man.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, that redhead kid? No, that guy got the shit. He's the bottom dog.
So that was a fun little scene to start the episode. I also just wanted to... I think it was Dopo had a line where he suggested they just punch each other repeatedly, no karate or anything.
yeah, he's like, man, we gotta just man up and just punch each other with brute strength.
How about we take turns trading punches? Don't really care who starts. No using karate, no using weapons. Nothing funny. Just 2 men, their brute strength, last man standing.
I loved that. I think they should bring back trial by combat, but to keep things fair, just you have to punch each other. No karate.
I'm picturing, have you seen those slap fights?
Yes.
But they just stand across from each other in full force, slap each other.
Dopo honestly looks like the type of guy who would be in a slap fight.
No, his neck was... I mean, I get, the anime... style, but his neck was insane. He had 2 giant sausages for tendons in his neck.
So you know what the funniest thing is? So this adaptation is adapting comics that were or manga that was written in like the year 2000, and Baki is still being produced today. And so I was on their subreddit recently, and people were saying that they can't take the new Dopo seriously because he's too thick, and they're comparing him to when he like today, like they're using the Dopo that you just said was too thick as a reference of this was the right amount of thick, and now his neck is just too thick.
Oh, he's thicker now?
He's thicker now. I'll send you some reference.
Because it was thick enough that I recall noticing, I'm like, that guy's neck is ridiculous. And then I looked at the redhead kid's neck, and it was much smaller, still, anime style, but like significantly smaller. And then throughout the whole rest of the show, I was comparing necks. And this Dopo guy just had the king of necks.
He's definitely, I'd say, top two. The guy who got hit by a meteor has a pretty big neck, but I think I think his head was at a weird angle in that shot.
He had just done his neck workout, so he was a little fatigued.
So the fight in the park ends like all Baki fights do, where one guy instantly destroys the other guy by surprisingly using karate. So Dopo knocks Doyle out and brings him to the Shinshinkai dojo. So I don't know if you picked this up, Louis. Last episode ended with Doyle blowing up a floor of the Shinshinkai dojo using pastry flour as an explosive. Oh, sorry. This is totally unrelated to your episode, but I do have to do a corrections corner. So last episode, I was talking about how pastry flour and the science lesson they gave on how dust explosion works reminded me of Popular Mechanics for Kids, and how Alicia Cuthbert was the host of that show as a kid. And my mom, after listening to the episode, pointed out that the more interesting fact is that the male co-host was Jay Baruchel. So
I was gonna say it's Jay something. I can't remember his last name.
Yeah. I forgot. I didn't know that at all. I just knew the other one. Anyway.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I wasn't, but I feel like by the time Jay Baruchel blew up, I wasn't really watching PMK.
Oh wait. Jay, what's the last name? I gotta look this guy up.
It's the guy from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah. Anyway, I like to reference two classic shows in this podcast.
Would we call this a classic? I mean, PMK for sure.
So Doyle has been dragged unconscious into the Shinshinkai dojo. The police are gone. Everybody's gone. It's just Doyle, Katsumi, Dopo's son. Louis, what happens in this scene?
Wait, hold on. Is the burnt guy Dopo's son?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that was not explained thoroughly. That makes way more sense now. Yeah, this scene. So my impression was this is just a completely... I don't know how the redhead guy got there. I don't know who any of these other people are. But the redhead guy was having a bad day because he just got the shit kicked out of him again. But I have to say it wasn't a very polite manner. And I appreciated that.
Do you, Doyle, admit defeat? This'll keep happening.
Yeah, like they're just trying to get him to admit defeat. Like it's the title of the episode,
I don't know why. That part was never explained to me. But yes, they were very insistent on it.
Well, it's like I've been saying. The whole theme of the season was 5 death row inmates came to Japan to seek defeat. So you'd think Doyle would be a lot more agreeable to this, considering the whole reason he came here was to be defeated.
Hold on. Is the defeat death?
Once again, I think it changes from death row inmate to death row inmate. Doyle seems to think that it's death. I think that's a fair interpretation. So I guess that's probably why he's reluctant to admit defeat. But yeah, Katsumi just beats the shit out of him.
But he does give him a nice meal right after.
To be honest, it didn't seem that nice. It seemed like okay.
What? I thought it looked nice. A fish, some rice.
Yeah, fish and rice. Wow. Thanks for knocking me unconscious. Thanks for leaving an indent in my skull. Wow, at least I got my fish and rice.
It's no feast, but we're at war, so best enjoy what you got.
Actually, that guy's skull just got like slowly destroyed over the episode. I swear to God, just the fist indentations.
The final punch, he should have died then and there. Like they showed blood coming out of his ears, like implying like his brain is just oozing out.
They had the best doctor on hand.
Yeah, the best doctor on hand. Whoever they had in the... Our number one surgeon is... he doesn't work for a hospital. He works for the local karate dojo.
You know what? Actually, and it's funny how TV will do this, but now when I think back on the show, the dialogue and the sentiments were normal. But I remember distinctly while watching it, the dialogue... I understand it's dubbed, but it's very obscure and like not right. Where the way they state things, like I can crush 2 cinder blocks with my downward punch. It's just standing over the guy.
I've got a downward strike powerful enough to turn 3 concrete blocks into dust.
Before he downward punches his face into the mat.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the thing is, like, I don't know. I've seen people listen to the subs, and like the subtitles have their own charm to it, but I sort of have to use the dubs because I add clips to the podcast. And you can't really subtitle a clip, but the dubs, it really is a bit of broken telephone, where it's like something that barely makes sense in Japanese being translated into English.
I have to say that what was the Burt guy's name again?
The bird guy?
The burnt guy.
Oh, sorry, Katsumi.
Katsumi. I liked him a lot. I actually thought there was some depth to that scene. There was a lot of
pathos.
Yeah, it's just like an attempt to genuinely teach humility, and that redhead guy was not having it.
Yeah,
but I liked it.
Well, okay, so before we get to the thrilling conclusion of Doyle and Katsumi, we do. You're very lucky, Louis. Not every guest gets Baki to actually show up in their episode. So we get more of Baki and Kozue, who last we saw them, Baki's dad told them how celibacy is for wimps. In this episode, Kozue writes Baki a letter, and then what happens?
Well, the letter is basically, I can't even remember what the letter said. Come find me.
Yep.
There was definitely this. There's a thought put forth that the next time they're alone, they're gonna do it. Mm-hmm. And then he just gets this letter, come find me, and I mean, I think this is very apt, but he just runs through the entire city, doesn't get in a cab, doesn't call anyone. In fact, they made it very clear that he was so in tune with his body that he was a running machine.
Baki was no fool. He simply had an immense and overriding level of faith in his body. That's why he didn't take a taxi or ride the train.
He just runs through the whole city, and I thought that was kind of cute. Like this poor guy's like, wow, it's finally gonna happen. And he just tears off, running through the city looking for this girl.
I thought it was cute too, but I also thought that this was like there was such high stakes for something that should have had zero stakes. Like, yes. Kozue was like, come find me. And so Baki runs to every spot in town. Kozue is angsting over if Baki will find her.
Been wandering around all the usual places we'd go together. Killing time, waiting. But he hasn't found me. Now I wonder, will he come?
Just tell him where you are.
That's the other weird ridiculous thing where it's like, it's not like come find me where it's just like a euphemism for like, hey, I'm at home, just like come over. No, she hid in the city somewhere. And it's not like she went to one place and then just hung out there. She was just like walking around. She went and got groceries. Like, the odds that he's gonna find her is zero. And it's like, yeah, and she gets all angsty about it. And she's like, oh no, what if he isn't gonna come? It's like, oh no, he's coming. He just doesn't know where the fuck you are. I love how her shirt is like all bedazzled and just has one word on it. It says romance.
Oh my god, I didn't catch that. I was so surprised by like probably the first, I would say, fan service shot in this show where Kozue's heart is beating and we just get a shot of just her chest.
Yeah. I'm not super surprised, but I don't watch that much anime, and so I'm not that familiar.
The thing is, Baki's very good at this because there's only one female character and she doesn't do much, so there's really not a lot of opportunities. Unless, to be fair, there are a lot of there's a surprising amount of fights where the guys get naked, so maybe it's not a great show, or maybe it is a great show for fan service, depending on your definition.
Like they get fully naked?
That happened twice, yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, one time the guy pulled a gun and said, strip down, and then the guy stripped down and kicked his ass. And then the other time he was coming out of the shower and then he said, let me put on my pants, and Baki said, who told you can put on your pants? And then they fought. It just sort of comes up, it's pretty organic.
I see. But yeah, so then they finally find each other, and they're in like I don't know where they are. It just seems like a outhouse from the outside. And then it's just empty rooms. Like, I'm like, is this like a dojo? Is this...
I believe that is Baki's old abandoned house that he lived in. But yes, it does look like it looks like an outhouse from the outside. A very nice outhouse in the middle of Japan.
Yeah. And so they get together, and then
I'll get dinner started for us.
Don't bother.
She's just like, I'll cook dinner. He's like, no, we're not gonna cook dinner.
I'll have a bath.
She goes, no bath. And then eventually they do this like climactic loving embrace, but I don't know if I just saw it wrong. What I saw is he just grabbed the top of her head.
It was a very weird pose. I don't think I've ever thought about grabbing someone like that.
No, and it was again a very strange scene. I'm sure there's relevance if you have the backstory, but that mixed in with this redhead kid just getting the shit kicked out of him somewhere else made for a very strange episode.
If you think that's strange, like, full disclosure, like if anyone's uncomfortable with this scene so far, next week we get about a third of the episode is them having sex for the first time, and it is, I don't know how we're gonna talk about it on the show.
Oh my god! I gotta watch this episode. My morbid curiosity.
It's basically what happens when a guy who only draws men fighting tries to make a sex scene. But we'll get to that next week. Sorry, editor Steve jumping in. We didn't touch on it, but I had to include my favorite out of context line for the episode.
Well, you want to become the world's strongest man, don't you? Your dad said that having sex will help you achieve that, so...
Kozue, you know that's not what I want.
So on that cliffhanger, we go back to Doyle and Katsumi. We sort of touched on this. The doctor's there now, and the doctor has some commentary about how in this author's world, like, doctors and martial artists are the two pillars of society of equal respect to each other. Doctors study to heal the body, while martial artists study to destroy the body.
Sounds like some lobbying groups got together and were like, I know, we'll keep healing people and you keep sending them.
Big Pharma and Big Show teamed up.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so we get to the thrilling conclusion where Katsumi does his punch that can punch through 3 cinder blocks right into Doyle's face, turns Doyle's face into a concave, horrible looking object. I can't even think of a way to describe it. Doyle, of course, passes out for the 4th time. Every time Doyle woke up, he got punched in the face and got knocked out again, if that wasn't clear. Anyway. And then he wakes up again, and this time Katsumi isn't there. And what happened, Louis?
See, and I like this. I thought it was actually a pretty... it had substance. And so what has happened is Katsumi has decided that he can't bring himself to kill this poor
death row
fellow. is that what he is? He's death row inmate? Yeah. Well, he can't bring himself to kill him, and he's just beat him up so much that he's had enough. He's sick to his stomach of it, and so he himself admits defeat. You know.
Yeah, it was. Sorry, you go.
I thought that there is something poetic about that, and maybe it's a trope that is not original, but I liked it. I like how they pulled it off, and he was just such a nice guy. And he's like, all right, I'm out of here. He uses his henchman behind to tell the redhead guy when he wakes up, hey, you won this fight. You know, your face to fist style is too much for me.
Well, and you know what? It was rewarding for him. Like, he left that with a nice warm glow on his face and no regret.
Upon accepting his first defeat, Katsumi felt something quite unexpected and extraordinary. A joyful sense of liberation he had never known before.
Now, I wanted to ask about the symbolism of Doyle's last shot in this episode. I cannot wrap my head around. So the last shot of Doyle is Katsumi leaves, and he's accepted that he can't break Doyle, and it cuts. And as he leaves, right by the door, Doyle is crouched down in front of him. He has taken off his turtleneck, so he's shirtless. He has put his turtleneck on the ground and then lifted one arm up in the air, almost as if he was like saying, please step on my turtleneck so your shoes won't get dirty or something like that. I don't know what that pose was supposed to represent.
Really? Oh no, I loved this. I thought it was the height of the show, if you will. So this guy is trying to prove himself, this redhead guy. The whole show, he's trying to pick fights with these people way beyond his ability, and it shows. And he gets the crap kicked out of him. And he's like that. You can picture that archetype. You can't give up. You have no chance, and you're just like foolhardy. The essence of foolhardiness. And here he has this guy who's by all means way more accomplished than he is. He gives up and he demonstrates, like you can have humility. You can admit defeat, and it's okay, and it doesn't rob you of your power. And I don't know the redhead guy's name, but
Doyle.
He learns Doyle. He learns that lesson, and I think in the end, it's an appreciation and a thank you, and a reciprocated humility of like, I thought I was being a tough guy, and I thought I had to keep fighting, and that was my only way to actualize myself and my potential. And here he's learned that lesson, that no, that's not all there is to life. And in fact, sometimes admitting defeat and moving on and being true to yourself brings greater joy and greater accomplishment. And so I think it was a beautiful little student learning a lesson. Where
did he have to take off his shirt to come to this conclusion?
Well, I wouldn't put it past the episode. after everything I'd seen, that was the least surprising part. You kind of gotta decode the message.
All right. Well, let's move on to the last little segment of the episode. We get to see our good pal, Mr. Tokugawa, visiting a martial arts dojo that we've never been to before. And Mr. Tokugawa is surprised by all of the foreigners, foreigners in this case being non-Japanese people.
Please, come inside.
Thank you so much. This man is a foreigner.
Yeah, Louis, walk me through Mr. Tokugawa's visit to the dojo.
Oh, man. So, yeah, there's not a lot here. He just goes and meets with
the crypt keeper.
Is he the crypt? Yeah, okay, yes.
He looks like it. I don't know. I think he's
like
one of the weirdest looking guys in the show.
He has one of these, like, squashy oblong heads that's, weird shaped. He's got one arm.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the ground, and he's just smoking a doobie.
Yeah.
His eyes are all crossed, looking in different directions. Like, the guy is definitely insane. He's certifiably insane.
Thank you for coming all this way. I'm Kunimatsu. Nice to meet you. Would you care for some tea?
But before we get to the conversation, I just want to touch on something. So, he's introduced as being a very popular martial arts instructor for foreigners.
Members of the FBI, CIA, police officers, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, bodyguards, you name it. All those men we just walked by, they're either military or law enforcement. These are all letters of thanks from dignitaries around the world. FBI directors, American presidents, Russian general secretaries, and other key figures from their respective nations.
And it's implied that the FBI, the CIA, police, military send soldiers to his dojo. So, like, his specialty would be martial arts for government agencies. He has, I think they said the president of the United States had written him thank you letters. Like, he has all of these letters from global dignitaries. So I'm like, this makes sense. Maybe it's like he knows Krav Maga or something, like a martial art used by police or whatever. But then on the wall behind him are like spears and halberds. There's a lance on the wall behind him, like swords. Like, why is he teaching people in the military how to use a lance? I didn't get it at all.
Really? Well, the things that you're surprised by. That just seems like normal crazy guy dojo stuff to me.
All right, whatever.
At this point in the show, I was so inured to the over-the-topness that was not what surprised me in the least.
All right, so what did this surprise you from this martial arts master?
I do have to say the fact that he's supposed to be renowned for CIA agents and all that crap. Like, I got more of like a Goop Lab vibe, like that kind of karate school rather than training CIA agents.
Yeah, I don't know how many CIA agents are going to use that bowling ball trick.
Wow, I'm sure they have their company bowling party. That's his trick. Like, his big trick is he can pick up a bowling ball with the palm of his hand using a suction.
Now, as you can clearly see, this is a bowling ball. There's really not much to explain about the science behind how this works. All I did was create a vacuum in the palm of my hand.
Sorry, editor Steve, I just wanted to include this. It's my favorite scene on the rewatch. Tokugawa tries to do the vacuum palm thing with the bowling ball, and let's see.
Did you really think you could just see it and then do it?
Which is just odd. Like, if he's this great, he has all these other things like poison palm, death palm, life palm, a lot of palm techniques. One of them being suction palm to pick up a bowling ball.
If you haven't caught on yet, this guy's a master of the Way of the Void, or the same martial arts skill that listeners might remember from Ryuko Yanagi.
And it's actually funny because I went to a wedding a couple weeks ago, and one of the bartenders there would pour a can of pop with that exact technique. I had no idea how practiced and astute his technique really was, but in hindsight. But yeah, he would like create a vacuum in his palm on the bottom of like a Coke can, and then pour the can with like an open hand, and the can was just like stuck to his palm.
You don't know how lucky you were to get out of there alive.
Exactly. I could have been killed at any moment.
He has in his hands the world's most deadliest gas, the most deadly poison in the world.
Dun, 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 dun. I don't
Oxygen.
get the poison. Oh my god.
To be fair, the whole next episode, the beginning of next episode is going to be learning about poison, and then we jump right into the sex.
Well, I kind of don't get me too excited. But the other, you opened up this line of questioning with before we get to their conversation. I don't remember what they talked about at all because I was just too preoccupied with like, this guy's, what the fuck is going on? Because he's just too weird. I don't know what they talked about at all.
As one of the uninitiated in these practices, you're better off not knowing. That's right, this arm here. It's another victim of Yanagi's poison.
They really didn't talk about much. It was mostly just vacuum hands, and once again, this is just a Baki thing that the author really gets hung up on impressive things like. Ryuko Yanagi was able to grab a piece of paper with his hand in midair using a vacuum. And I don't know, the bowling ball sounds more impressive to me.
Thank you for reminding me. I remember being like, I don't know if is a piece of paper hard to do this with? Like that seems like the easiest thing.
That's the thing. Yeah, I don't know, but
I was expecting like he could lift someone off the ground like with the vacuum hand or something like impressive.
Yeah.
Not hold a sheet of paper.
Yeah. Anyway, that's how the episode ends with the Crypt Keeper telling Tokugawa that
Hold on. The episode ends just like I didn't even know what had happened. I was just watching along, and then all of a sudden it was just over.
Yeah.
And it was like mid-sentence. It's just like, and cut. That's our 25 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's sort of a cliffhanger, I think what they had said is like, my most deadly student was Ryuko Yanagi. He cut off my arm. And then we see Ryuko Yanagi looking at the dead arm that he apparently kept on a trophy case, and then we go into like ba da 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 da, and the beautiful end credits play.
This wasn't like a cliffhanger. This was like a Looney Tunes. They drew a picture of a cliff, but it wasn't really there.
Yes.
It was. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was too abrupt.
Yeah, well, it's the problem is it's based on a manga and pretty closely based on it, and they don't really map 1-to-1 for episodes. So sometimes you just end in the middle of the action. It's a good show to binge.
And maybe that's the biggest surprising takeaway from this, which is that the cliffhanger was so abrupt that it got me a little disturbed. I want to watch more. I'm like, what is going to happen next to these characters who I can't recall their names?
It's oh my god, I don't even know one of them. Editor Steve will pop in with the real name. I've already used it in a clip, but the Crypt Keeper's real name is Kunimatsu. Okay, so Louis, I have two questions for you. The first one I ask everybody. Now that you've watched an episode of Baki, do you think that it's a good show?
I'm reaching for redeeming qualities, but and it's only one episode. No, I don't know how you would think it's a good show.
That's
fine. It was
fine.
entertaining, and I'm compelled to watch more. But I don't think that's enough to call it a good show. It had no followable plot. The dialogue was I mean, right on that border where it's like it's not so crazy that it's hilarious and entertaining, but it's also really bad. So it's not good and poetic. Does anyone think it's a good show?
I'd say about half the people say yes. I think you have probably the biggest no I've seen so far. Actually, no. You did say it was entertaining. I have had some people just say that it was just very bad overall. Yeah, it's a split. You know, Baki's an acquired taste. I think it's for the intellectual crowd.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, it's okay to be a Philistine.
Have you watched what's this other show, The Wire?
No, but I have had people on this podcast compare Baki to The Wire.
Okay, that was gonna be my question. Is it like I'm imagining if you watched it, in its entirety, it would take on.
I don't think so. The comparison I heard was the person who brought up the Wire said, well, like the first season is all about something, and then the next season is about something else. And Baki's like that. The first season is about death row inmates, and then Baki goes to China to fight the world's 12 greatest kung fu people. And then next season, Baki goes to jail.
Maybe there is something here. I'm finding myself compelled to find out what happens.
That means it's a good show. All right. Second question for you. And this is just because I found this so funny. Doyle was basically the main character of your episode, but I feel like you didn't get to know a lot about him. Every fighter in Baki, more or less, has a gimmick towards them, towards their fighting style or how they fight. What do you think Doyle's was?
A high tolerance for pain and destruction.
All right.
I didn't get much. He just seemed like he rushed in headlong and got the shit kicked out of him at every turn.
So it might surprise you. Doyle's thing for the whole season, except this episode, is that he has surgically implanted blades all throughout his body, and by clicking his fingers, the blades can pop out. He also has bombs inside his body, and a few other tricks. His gimmick is that he has implanted devices in his body that he uses to kill people.
Okay, this isn't that much of a surprise because there was like little, shadowing of this when he was being taunted by his various
tormentors.
Tormentors, yeah. They kept telling, "Oh, no tricks. You're not gonna, fight with a weapon." There's one scene where they're eating and. So this was.
They're eating that wonderful meal.
They're eating that wonderful fish and rice, and Doyle jumps up and charges and strikes at his captor, and his captor remarks like, "Oh, you're not. Fork is here and a spoon and a plate, and you come at me with just bare hands."
Man, if he had used that spoon, he might have been able to beat Katsumi. All right. Well, that is all we've got. Thank you for coming on the show, Louis. This was a blast. And if anybody wants to listen to more, just, subscribe or leave a comment. Or if you want to join the community of our technically growing Discord, there's links in the description. But anyway, that's all the Baki we've got to talkie. See you all next week.